Hello there. Welcome to my show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak. It's July 20th, 2020. Happy Monday, beginning of the new week. Yeah, so today is Happy World Jump Day. So hope you had a chance to jump. Yeah, I guess I took a type of a jump. I went to my went to an optometrist in Bailey's Corner. You should go there. People are really nice. Um, and yeah, see your eye doctor. Get your eye checked, upgrade your glasses. If you have a vision insurance plan with your work, you don't want to go. You don't want it to go to waste, right? You weren't able to go for a few months, and you may not be able to go for a while. So this is probably a good time to go. There's like opening this week, so there are several places to go. My eye doctor, Vision Works. Uh, you know, uh, you could call and see if they take your insurance. And give your eyes checked. Pick up a pair of glasses. And I have VSP vision insurance, so I got my eyes checked today um, on at Vision Works in Bailey's Corner. That was really nice. And I found out you can order glasses online through VSP. So I ordered the glasses online, and it was like, yeah, I feel good about it. I ordered Ray-Bans, and I think they look good on me. And you know, so yeah, there's these places you can order using your insurance online. It was pretty easy to do. So you get your vision checked, order your glasses either there or online. It's nice and convenient because who knows, um, they may shut the businesses down in a few weeks if a lot of people start dying. Once the school starts opening, one of the disadvantages of school start opening is, when Arlington, Alexandria, Foster, and Fairfax City public schools start to open, the infection is going to go up. Children are going to get infected, their parents are going to get infected, teachers are going to get infected, and you're going to have like a lot of people die. You know, so it's going to be like chaotic. And what that means is, you know, um, things are going to start shutting down. So one of the arguments that are being used to open schools may be the very argument that will be used to close down not only all the schools but all the businesses. Let's unpack this. Some people are saying we should open schools because when we open schools, children will go to school so the parents can go to work, right? That's the logic. In a perfect world, that makes sense. But in COVID-19 world, that does not make sense. And let me tell you why. Do you remember It's a Beautiful Mind or Beautiful Mind, the movie about a Nobel Prize winning mathematician who opposed zero-sum game? And one of his argument is if you have all these beautiful women, if there are four women, uh, if the four guys decide in advance that we're going to go, um, you know, we're going to go after like women that we designate or decide on or agree on. So there are these four women there. So either you draw a straw or you come to an agreement, and then four guys go straight to the four women. So in the movie, and you can watch this movie, Beautiful Mind, Um, the argument was the women will not be offended because they're not going to think that they're second best, because no women like to think that they're second. They all want to be first choice. Um, and so and the argument in the movie is, if every boy goes to the one girl that has been selected for him, then all four guys would get laid. You know, that's the argument that was used in the movie. Um, in a perfect world, that sounds good, but a world is not a perfect world, and theory never really always works the way it looks like it's going to work in the real world. So let's say there are four guys who go to these four women. It's not like it's a paradise lost or abandoned island with four women and four guys. There are other guys there, right? So in the beach there, you see four women, but you and your three buddies are not the only guys in that beach. So let's say you and your three buddies go to the four women because you've selected them, and everyone goes to the woman that they were supposed to. It is still possible that four guys don't get laid, meaning all those four women could turn down all the four guys because there are other guys in the beach. So they don't have to sleep with you and your friends. Or they may be good Christian women who don't believe in having sex before marriage. In which case, even if all four like all four of you, you're not going to get sex. They're going to wait for marriage. You see, in the real world, there are so many eventualities that theory doesn't always work. Do you see what I'm saying? And so, you know, I'm Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District. And I do not believe that the guy who turned out to be schizophrenic, guy in beautiful mind, who destroyed zero-sum game theory for decades, I don't think he was right. You know, as you know, if you've visited the Twitter account of Georgetown Collaborative Diplomacy Initiative, GCDI, I'm the president from 2019 to 2020 academic year. And it's a School of Foreign Policy group. And it's the primary group for students who are interested in diplomacy. And so at Georgetown University. So I'm the president of that. And if you read my Twitter accounts and ruminations upon diplomacy, I argue that zero-sum game is the most accurate, and we need to go back to the zero-sum game. Because if the four guys get the four girls and sleep with them, then all the other guys in the beach, they can no longer sleep with them that night. You see what I'm saying? So everyone else just loses out because the four guys got the four girls. So actually, the Beautiful Mind, that episode proves my theory, Heerak Christian Kim's theory, the world operates on a zero-sum game, right? The Nobel Prize winner who was doing his PhD at Princeton and taught at Princeton for a while, he's operating from a vacuum, meaning there are four women and four guys. World is not a vacuum. There are a lot of people there. And there are a lot of guys, if you have four women like that, there are a lot of guys who want to have one night in heaven or longer with those women. So the Beautiful Mind, the Nobel Prize winner, he's absolutely wrong. And Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District, I'm right. So, because, you know, world is not in a vacuum. No theory works if it's a theory that's focusing on a microcosm. You have to focus on the macrocosm, and that's why zero-sum game works. Because when you look at the world and competition in the world, there are limited resources globally, so that if America is dominant, then China will not be dominant. If China is dominant, America will not be dominant. Both cannot be dominant together. And you have to be adult about it. You can't say, "Oh yeah, there's a Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse who are mouse who can actually speak." I mean, we live in the real world. We gotta come back to the real world. We don't live in a fictional world. Do you see what I'm saying? Um, so yes, it's a happy world, jump day, but do not jump off of a cliff because you will die. You don't have wings. Okay, you gotta live in the real world or you're gonna end up dead, literally. Yeah. So so we have about 500 deaths in 24 hours. So the death is kind of spotty, because COVID-19 started like 2, 3 weeks ago, and a lot of people are going to hospital. So what that means is death is going to be delayed. So if people are staying home, then they'll start dying right away. But they're going to the hospital, so the hospitals are full. In Florida, ICU is full. 53 hospitals have ICU full, which means they're not going to die, at least right away, because they're in the ICU. So the moment you enter the ICU nurse's primary job is to keep you alive. So you will be kept alive generally at least few weeks, maybe longer. So as soon as you enter the hospital, your death slows down. And that's why 3 weeks ago I said you have to wait around 3 to 5 weeks to start seeing deaths, because they could put you on a ventilator and you could live on the ventilator for like 2, 3 months, and then you could survive after that unless they pull the plug on you. So I would recommend you don't sign any do not resuscitation order because if they pull the plug, you're gonna die. But if they don't pull the plug, maybe you'll come back alive. So in our nursing ethics class that we had with Professor Sarah Vitone, who's a leading expert in nursing ethics in Washington, D.C. area, and also nationally. She's respected. She taught us, nursing ethics in the summer semester. And one of the things that she wanted us to do is write up our own, you know, code, living will. How do we want to be treated when we're about to die or we're like on the verge of death? So I wrote there, do not pull anything out. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm like, do everything to keep me alive. I don't care how many tubes you have to put into me. Keep me alive, And I said, do not let anybody pull out my tubes, because you could be kept alive in a tube for like a year. And there have been cases where people have come out of a coma, medically induced coma, and lived. As long as they don't pull the plug on you, you can still live. There's a chance. If you remember the movie While You Were Sleeping with Sandra Bullock, if you haven't seen this movie, I recommend you see this. It's a great romantic movie, but more importantly for you living in the COVID-19 era, facing potential death and facing potential medically induced coma to keep you alive and all these intubation tubes, it's important that you see that movie, because in that movie, the protagonist, a main character, goes into a medically induced coma, and he comes out alive. And these things happen all the time around the world. The reason they put you in a medically induced coma is so that your body could become stronger enough. Eventually, you could come alive. And they say, if you have an acute kidney injury, it takes like 6 months for it to recover. So if you have COVID-19 attacking your lungs and it damages your lungs, and that's why you have to have a tube to breathe, it could take at least 6 months or longer, maybe a year, for things to heal. So you could be in a coma for a year. That doesn't mean you're going to die. You could come alive after a year. People live to 100 all the time. So I would recommend you don't get a do not resuscitation order, DNR they call it. Even if people encourage you to get it, don't get it. That's just my encouragement, my recommendation, because you can always live. there's always a small chance you could live. So always say, I want everything done to keep me alive. Yeah, just say that. And make sure what I would do is not just say that, write out your living will now. So that, because like if you lose your consciousness, if you haven't written out a living will, a nurse or a doctor could convince your wife or your children to pull the plug on you. So let's say you're like 60 years old, you could still live like 30 years longer. But if nurse or doctor persuades your wife or your children to pull the plug, obviously you're going to die. So the way to prevent that is to write out a living will. Living will is like you write down exactly what you want done for you. And I would recommend, and I've done this for myself, for Professor Sarah Viton's class. And she knows, she's probably watching this show because everybody watches this show. She knows. I wrote in that assignment, I do not want anybody to pull out any of my tubes. I want to be kept alive at all costs possible. And they have a section in the living will, the assignment that she assigned us, where it asks, if you lose your consciousness and you lose, you're in a coma, who would you want to designate as a power of attorney, like the person who can make choice to pull the plug or not? And you know what I put on there? I said, no one. I trust no one. So when I lose consciousness and I'm in a deep coma, nobody has the right to pull my plug out. I want all the plugs placed in, to keep me alive. So I put that down because they have to pay for you. Like once you run out of insurance, and once there's no more money to pay for you, the hospital still have to pay for you. Yeah, they can't just kill you. And sometimes hospital want to pull the plug because they don't want to keep paying for you because your insurance coverage has run out. So, hospital doesn't want to keep paying for you. So if they plug the plug out, then they have to no longer pay for you because your insurance ran out, right? If you're in a coma for 6 months. So the hospital is paying for you, right? Because they're required by law to do that. They can't kill you. So the hospital has, I would argue, I'm a theologian from a Christian theological angle, and I know Catholic Church feels strongly about certain things, I'm not going to go into everything, all the life ethics issues from a Catholic theological perspective. That is in large part in agreement with evangelical theologians. Is like keeping people alive is very important, so they want you to do everything you can to do that. So that's the Catholic position. But from a hospital position, obviously they don't want to lose money by keeping you alive. So they want to pull the plug. So what the hospital does, and I think this is somewhat unethical, sometimes people try to persuade you to your children or your wife to pull the plug. They try to persuade you with comments like, oh, your husband is suffering, or your husband doesn't even know what's going on. Your husband is basically brain dead. You just pull the plug. Yeah, basically they try to persuade you to pull the plug. And I think that's unethical. Because you need to present all the options as viable. You're going to say your husband can remain in a coma. If you have the freedom to say your husband can remain in a coma, and then we'll just continue giving resuscitation through the ventilator, keep him alive. There's some chance that he could come out alive. There's some chance he's going to die. But if you want us to keep him in a ventilator, we will. I think that's more ethical, right? But if you want us to pull the plug, there is evidence-based research that says people in coma can feel pain. If you want us to, pull the plug and kill them, they won't say kill them, obviously. Pull the plug, then we will. But they need to present all the options in a fair way, But obviously when money is involved, there's corruption. So because hospitals can lose money if they keep you on the ventilator for 6 months or a year, So they will try to persuade you to pull the plug. So I'm worried like they'll persuade my sisters, because I'm not married and I don't have children. And even if I were married and I have children, I'm afraid that they'll persuade my wife or my children to pull the plug. Uh, even when I marry, I'm going to make sure I don't have any power of attorney. My statement will be like, keep me alive at all costs. Alive meaning if my heart is beating, do not pull the plug. I don't care if I'm brain dead. Do not pull the plug. Because you can come back from brain death. I mean, brain death, they're not 100% certain. I mean, it's not like they could do, you know, brain biopsies, on you. They're thinking you're brain dead, but they could never be 100% sure that you're brain dead because there isn't anything to really determine you that you're brain dead. You're in a coma, for God's sake. Of course, your brain isn't having that much activity, so you may mimic that brain death, but you may not be dead. So, um, because if you're an organ donor, if they declare you brain dead and they pull the plug, they harvest all your organs. And I'm an organ donor, and I don't have problem donating my organ. If I get into a horrible car accident and die, then they could just harvest my organs. But I do not want them to harvest my organs when I'm, in a coma from COVID-19 on a ventilator, and they think I'm brain dead, and all these people need organs. Why don't we just plug the, ventilator on Heerak so we can harvest his organs and give to organ donors? I'm like, hey, give me a chance, dude. I mean, I could still live. As I said, if you have a acute kidney injury, it takes you 6 months for it to be healed. So if you have a assault on your lungs through COVID-19, it may take you 6 months or a year to heal. So yeah, you could be in a coma for a year. You could still come out alive. So I would recommend you don't do the DNR. And one of the reasons why I say that is I worked in a heart cardiac unit in a hospital in Northern Virginia, and 100% of the patients that I took care of was full code, meaning you have to do everything you can to save them. Put tubes down everywhere, their nose, their mouth, everywhere just to keep them alive. All of them, all the patients that I looked at, and they all lived. There are people who had tubes placed in 6, 7 times in the last 15 years, but they're still alive because they had the tube placed in. They were willing to grit and bear that. So they lived 15 years. Had they had a DNR to not resuscitate, they would have died 15 years ago because they would not have put a tube in you. These tubes work. I mean, we're talking about state-of-art science. America is #1 in the world in treatment. There's no country in the world that's as good as treatment as America. So if anybody can keep you alive in the world, America can. So I think one of the reasons why we have such a high death rate in COVID-19 is I think nurses and doctors persuade the patient or patient's family over the phone or whatever to pull the plug, ventilator. And then they're going to definitely die, right? My solution here at Christian Kim Independent Candidate for U.S. Congress, I say make more ventilators, make millions of ventilators, because human life is worth it. That's my argument. Use whatever you have to do to make more ventilators and then keep everybody alive. That's my philosophy because, I'm influenced by Catholic theology on life, value of life. So I feel like all of those 140,000 lives are important. And I bet most of them had their tube pulled. Some of them probably died while they had the tube in, but I would imagine most of them died because, they had the tubes pulled by nurses and doctors after their children or their wife or their parents agreed to having the tube pulled. If they did not have the tubes pulled, I'm sure our death rate would be much lower. Because as I said, there's no country like America to keep you alive. And I was shocked, when I worked at the Northern Virginia Hospital with patients with heart conditions. I was shocked that someone with such serious condition lived 15 years. 15 years. Like they had like triple bypass surgery like 15 years ago. And they had like surgery after surgery. I mean, the patient was came to hospital like every 2 years for like a couple months because of a heart attack or heart failure or something serious. I mean, that you could die from. But they're like full code, meaning like do everything you can to keep me alive. And that's what the hospital did, and they didn't die. I mean, America's number one in keeping people alive. As long as you don't say do not intubate or do not resuscitate, DNR, they will keep you alive. But it costs the hospital because if your insurance runs out, then the hospital has to pick up the bill. And that's why hospital wants you to pull the plug. I mean, this is why, from a Christian theologian angle, because I am a theologian, I am a Christian theologian who deals with ethics, obviously, because I teach Christian ethics to my students who train to be Christian pastors in India. I go to India to teach. I'm an adjunct professor in an Indian university training master's students who are studying to be Christian clergy in India. And I teach ethics, and we deal with a lot of ethical questions. We don't really dive into medical ethics that much because, I mean, they're going to be pastors, so you got to deal with like just overarching themes. But, Christian theologians who are evangelical or Catholic, they emphasize keeping people alive at all costs. So money doesn't become a priority, obviously. But obviously in America, hospitals are businesses, right? It's not like their priority is to keep you alive. I mean, it's one of their priorities, but they have other priorities like they need to make money because many of the hospitals are for profit, and they're not going to make money if you have a tube in you that's keeping you alive for months when your insurance ran out and hospital has to pick up the bill. So from a financial angle, it's cheaper for them to pull your tube out. But as I'm saying, I think it's unethical to try to get you to do that because it's the cheaper option. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you're understanding me correctly. I don't want to be too crass or too explicit about it, but you get my point, right? And so when I was taking care of patients in Northern Virginia, these patients that I was taking care of, all of them were full code. So some of them would come in every 2 years with a heart condition. They had a heart failure or another heart attack, or they had like ventricular, defibrillation. So they have to get defibrillated, but they're still alive. 15 years later, they're still alive. They come in for like AFib, atrial fibrillation, ventricular fibrillation. They come in for all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was looking their charts because I'm a very good clinical nurse leader, right? I mean, I took that exam last Monday and passed. So I'm just waiting for my certificate, right? Yeah, so yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I studied the charts very carefully because I'm a very good nurse. Uh, you know, uh, uh, you know, clinical nurse leader. Person who passed that test. I don't have my certificate yet, so I don't know how to call myself because yeah. But anyway, yeah, because you need the certificate to officially call yourself a clinical nurse leader, right? So, but I did pass the test, so I'm just waiting for the certificate. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I studied the charts very carefully, and like they should have died every time they came to the hospital for 15 years. Like they come every 2 years or something. But each time they survived. Well, that's how good American medicine is. If you want them to keep you alive, you probably will be kept alive. But it will cost the hospital a lot because after a while, your insurance doesn't pay. Hospital has to pick up the bill. But after I saw that, and I worked in the Northern Virginia Hospital, at the cardiac center, you know, unit in spring of 2020. So this course on ethics with Professor Sarah Vitone was in summer 2020. So I'm like, man, and I explained it to her too on the assignment that I handed. I got an A in her class. Um, you know, and so I explained it to her. I said the reason I want to be kept alive because I saw like patients in the clinical setting of cardiac unit who who had joy in living, and they were kept alive because they had all these tubes. They were willing to have the tubes placed inside, so they're kept alive for like 15 years. I mean, their family's happy, they're happy. It's not like they can move around and do stuff. I mean, obviously they can't do that when they're in a hospital, or when they're with have a tube in them for like weeks or sometimes months. But let's say you have 12 months and you're in the hospital intubated with a tube and in a coma for 4 months, you still have like what 8 months to enjoy. I mean, that's better than school. You were in school for 8 months. It's like living hell, and then you only have about 2, 3 months to enjoy. I mean, so it's much better than school, right? If you're like going to college, I mean, or whatever, graduate school is like worse. It's like living hell. Uh, I mean, being a graduate student, you're basically like dead for 8 months. I mean, you know how hard clinical nurse leaders, students at Georgetown University have to work. I mean, vouch for me, all you fellow cohort 2020 members at Georgetown. We had 34, and then we ended up with 25 who got pinned in May. Oh, pin, 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 pin. We got pinned, yay! Yeah, so 25 of us got pinned. We still haven't received our pin. What's the deal? Where is our pin? That's right. We haven't received our pin yet. Isn't that like weird? Our pinning ceremony was virtual in May, but we should have received our pins in our mail. Where's our pin? We gotta ask our professor where our pin is. Dr. Idilma Yearwood is the interim director of a clinical nurse leader program. She's the chairwoman of the Department of Nursing Practice. We should ask her, right? Where's Senya, our class representative? Senya, you should ask her, where's our pin? Where's our pin? Senya gave a amazing speech. She's so talented. She's so smart. She's so gifted. And she went to HBCU school in Atlanta. I think it's all girls school where my friend Nami Kim is a professor of ethics. I think it's ethics. Yeah, ethics. She did her THD at Harvard Divinity School. I told you like I was taking my doctoral seminars at Harvard in Jewish studies. So she was president of Harvard Divinity School Korean Students Association. So I went to the meetings. I tapped into my people, my ethnic group, wherever I go. So yeah, so like here in Virginia's 8th District, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax County, all the Korean church pastors know me. In fact, I have Back to God committee, and a lot of them are members of that, committee. Yeah, when I get elected to U.S. Congress, I'm bringing America back to God. So I started forming this Back to God committee with clergy and elders and deacons from Virginia's 8th District, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax County. Obviously, they're made up of different races, but they have to agree to two things that Bible demands, that the Roman Catholic Church agrees with, evangelical Christians agree with, is that they have to oppose homosexuality and they have to oppose abortion. So there's two central issues. If they can't sign off on that, they can't be part of the Heerak Christian Kim's Back to God committee. So when I become a U.S. congressman, that's those are two very important issues. It's in the Bible, Romans chapter 1. I mean, you can't change it, even if you want to. It's been in the Bible for like thousands of years. And obviously, God's going to make sure that that's enforced, And I'm saying COVID-19 is a punishment of God because Romans chapter 1 is being violated by the United States from a spiritual angle. Because obviously you could study the spiritual angle, you could study the epidemiological angle, you could study it from different angles, right? Public health angle, nursing angle, medicine angle, political science angle, you know. So yeah, and I've talked about that in this show. Um, and Roman Catholic Church obviously believes that no homosexual will go to heaven. Uh, and people who have abortion, they have to repent. If they don't repent, they're not going to go to heaven, right? Under the official position of the Catholic Church. Um, you're not even supposed to give communion, mass to a politician who votes to allow abortion. And John Paul II emphasized that, and the current Pope supports that. So Joe Biden cannot receive communion. And if he does, he's drinking and eating judgment upon himself, because he supports gay marriage and abortion. So if he takes communion, he drinks judgment upon himself. And that's there in the Bible, in the institution, as theologians call it. Yeah, because you're supposed to eat and drink the Lord's Supper in a worthy manner. Right? It's a serious thing. This Holy Spirit exists, and you know, there's the body and blood of Christ. You can't just eat it. It's been blessed. Yeah, I mean, you could drink. That's that's serious stuff. I mean, I'll go into that some other time, but yeah, if you violate God's law, like eating and drinking the Lord's Supper in an unworthy manner, yeah, that could have serious consequences. Yeah, God takes that seriously. So you could ask any Catholic priest or any evangelical pastor who follows the Bible. They'll say the same. Yeah. So, but yeah. So it's yeah. So you know it's a serious situation. When you think about what's going on. And so I want to save America. I want to save Americans from the judgment of God that's promised in Romans chapter 1. And that's why I'm running under the banner, bring America back to God. That's my official political position. And vote for me so that I could bring America back to God. As I said, I have the backing of a lot of evangelical and Catholic pastors, priests in Virginia's 8th District who support me and my vision for Virginia's 8th District. And obviously a lot of laity do as well. Yeah, so I'm excited. Yeah, I feel like I could beat Dan Byer in November 3rd, 2020. He doesn't really have that much support. His support has been dwindling because he's not really taking care of Virginia's 8th District constituents. As you know, I mean, you live here. If you're watching this from Virginia's 8th District, Heerak Christian Kim will do far better job taking care of you and your family and representing you. So I know you're going to vote for me. It makes logical sense. And so, yeah, so my positions because I'm always honest about my positions on my show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak, because I don't want you to vote for me and then like, oh, surprise, he's not what we voted for. Yeah, I don't want you to have that experience. So I'm like full transparency. If you don't want to vote for me, don't vote for me. I'm not forcing you to vote for me. If you agree with my positions and if that's what you want, vote for me. If that's not what you want, don't vote for me. You're free to do what you want. But if you want to affiliate yourself with me politically, and you're protected by civil rights laws, like if people fire you or mistreat you, or demote you, or say things that are discriminatory towards you because you're voting for Heerak Christian Kim, you could sue them under civil rights law. People who committed that wrong could go to jail. They could actually go to jail. Yeah, so you're legally protected, politically affiliated with Heerak Christian Kim. So I encourage you to do that. If you're right there, you probably just email me. I bat for you. I bat for you. I'm in your corner. Don't you feel like I'm in your corner? I'm literally in your corner, in your screen, on the right hand, upper hand side. But figuratively, I am also in your corner. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, right now. So yeah. To summarize, do not do not do a DNR. Do not resuscitate because you are 100% guaranteed to die if they don't resuscitate you, right? I mean, I shared with you that I got my BLS card, uh, ba- uh, basic life support card, where we have to prove that we can resuscitate you from death, basically your cardiac arrest when your heart stops. It's like basically dead, right? If we don't like resuscitate you. So if you said do not resuscitate you, we can't even try to do that. By law, you'll be considered assault. If you say do not resuscitate, and we try to save your life by like doing resuscitation effort, we could be charged for assault. So you could change your mind at the last moment. We can't help you. I mean, there are cases where people have signed a do not resuscitation order, right? So people who have training in BLS who could save your life, they can't save your life because if they even touch you, it'll be assault, right? Because you said do not resuscitate. It's a legal document. So we're not supposed to touch you because do not resuscitation means you don't want to be resuscitated. And so you could be criminally charged and go to jail if you try to resuscitate somebody with a do not resuscitation uh, legal document in their medical file. And so, I mean, I got BLS training. I know I could save your life if your heart stops. But if you have a DNR, do not resuscitate, I can't do anything to save you because there'll be assault. You have to give me permission to resuscitate you. And that's why we call full code. Do everything you can to save me. But if you do not resuscitate, I can't even try that. So do you see what I'm saying? I mean, um, so that's why when I submitted my assignment to Professor Guitone, I said I want everybody to resuscitate me. And on the section it says, who do you want to give your power of attorney to? Meaning like they could change your decision. I said no one. I don't want anybody to change my decision. I know what I want. I want everybody to try to save me. you know, until my heart stops beating, I want everybody to do what they can to resuscitate me. I don't care if I'm brain dead. I mean, I didn't write all of that down, but that's what I meant. So like a lot of people put their father or mother or their children, and then generally nurses or doctors come trying to persuade them to like annul or abrogate or cancel, uh, you know, resuscitation desire, wishes. And then because you have the power of attorney, you can change it. you know what I mean? And you're in a coma. You're like brain dead in a coma, but your heart is still beating, right? So if you gave your power of attorney to your son, and your son's like, man, my dad has like $2.5 million in his retirement fund. Obviously, I don't want to kill him, but it's like he's brain dead. The doctor and nurses said he's brain dead. I mean, you won't be like, killing him. He's already brain dead, and so he could rationalize and says, okay, fine, pull the plug. Now he's $2.5 million richer. Don't you think he has an incentive to pull the plug on you? So all I'm saying is there is an ethical conflict of interest here. I know people don't want to talk about it. I know nurses don't want to talk about it. I know doctors don't want to talk about it, but there's an ethical conflict of interest. What's the conflict of interest? It's financial. It's financial for the hospital because hospital don't want to pay for your resuscitation, right? Your intubation after your insurance run out, and they have to by law, right? If your insurance run out, they still have to treat you, and then they have to absorb that cost. So there's a financial conflict of interest whereby they would want to pull your plug so you die, so they don't have to pay to keep you alive. And I'm arguing that financial conflict of interest, or COI, corrupts the whole system, meaning like it corrupts the nurses or doctors who are trying to persuade your children to pull the plug on you. You see what I'm saying? I mean, you could do it ethically. You could present all 4 or 5 different potential scenarios, but sometimes nurses and doctors have been known to try to persuade your son to pull the plug. I mean, there's documented literature on this in nursing research and in research on American Medical Association. You know, that generally informed consent is an informed consent because they're trying to persuade you to do a DNR on your father. So it's not fully informed because it's kind of, you know, there's a conflict of interest. So there's an ethical debate about the ethics of informed consent when it comes to DNR. Do you see what I'm saying? To not resuscitation order. So I am saying that there's a potential for the whole organization to choose the wrong way because there's a financial incentive, and that financial incentive itself is COI, conflict of interest, right? If there was no financial conflict of interest, I'm arguing that nurses and doctors would present things differently because they're being pressured also by the administration, right? Yeah, so administration tries to pull the plug on you and get you killed because you're too expensive to keep you alive. So the administration tells nurses, pull the plug, pull the plug. Why haven't you pulled the plug? Get the son to sign the DNR so we could pull the plug. You see what I'm saying? So that the administration, the top dog in the hospital, is looking at the financial statements and saying, we have too many people on the tube that we have to pay for, you know? So get them to pull the plug, you know, you see what I'm saying? Because they're looking at the numbers, you know? And so, and sometimes CEOs of hospitals aren't even doctors. They're just like MBAs from Harvard Business School or Wharton Business School, you know? And they're looking at the bottom line, stockholders, if it's for-profit hospital, and there are a lot of for-profit hospitals. I'm not saying all for-profit hospitals are unethical. You know, I mean, you can't just generalize about that. You have to study hospital by hospital, and also within the hospital. You know, you have to be very careful. But I'm saying whenever there is a financial conflict of interest, COI, ethics comes into question, right? Why do you want to pull the plug? Because it's costing too much money, right? So you're saying that life is not as important as money. You see what I'm saying? People don't want to talk about it, and that's, I think, a problem. We do need to talk about it because we're talking about human lives. Pulling the plug is pulling the plug, and as Betsy Belfanti, she says, and you know, she's one of our court members. You know, Melissa King Jacob says there's only one death. That's when your heart stops beating, you know. And then Melissa King Jacobs, she's a faculty member at Georgetown, and she was our tutor for our nightmare class. You know, yeah. So yeah, and you know, she would tutor us, and all of us would be scared to death. You know, like our adrenaline would be in constant alert, fight or flight, you know, all 34 of us until it became 25. But yeah, Melissa, you would always say, you know, and Betsy, you know, you know, she's smart, you know, she has an MBA, you know, she's you know, she's bright, you know, and she always reminds the professors, you know, Melissa King Jacob says there's only one kind of death, heart death. You know, somebody needs to raise the ethical issue, right? I mean, Betsy doesn't say it's an ethical issue. She just kind of raises an issue, you know, but it is an ethical issue, right? When it comes to the question of pulling the plug or not. If you're going to say the person is brain dead, therefore we have the right to pull the plug, then you have to raise the ethical question, is brain dead really dead, right? So that's where the genius of Betsy comes in, because she doesn't phrase it that way, but she raised the question. Professor Melissa King Jacob says there's only one kind of death, that is when your heart stops beating. So that in and of itself, that statement itself raises an ethical question, right? Should you just pull the plug, or is it ethical to pull the plug because somebody's brain dead? if their heart is beating. You see what I'm saying? So Betsy approaches it in a very diplomatic way. She's an MBA, worked as like an MBA person. And MBAs, they have to work with all different conflicting, and they generally like to come with a consensus. That's like MBA. Christian ethicists, they don't like consensus. They want to stick with what is right, right? Christian ethicists do not believe in consensus. Theologians, Christian theologians or ethics, they want to do what is right. So for them, it's about whether it's right or wrong. So Christian ethics is different from other types of ethics because Christian ethics looks at things from the vantage point of it's right or wrong, right? Is it saving life? Is it killing life? They're very, in a sense, they're bipolar because there's only two extremes, right? It's either right or wrong. There really isn't a gray zone with Christian theologians, So, and part of it is they're dictated by the Bible. They have to follow the Bible. So Christian ethics follows the Bible and it has right and wrong. So Christian ethicists in the Roman Catholic Church would say, theologians who follow the Bible will say homosexuality is wrong. And you ask them why. They say, well, Romans chapter 1 says it's wrong. You see what I'm saying? So Christian ethics is dictated by the biblical text. So Christian ethics is different from philosophical ethics. Philosophical ethics, at least secular philosophical ethics, takes the Bible out and uses reason and argument, rationality as the chief evidence or chief determining factor. So secular philosophy or secular philosophical ethics is completely different from Christian theological ethics. So obviously, if you're an ethicist representing the Roman Catholic Church, or if you're an ethicist representing evangelical Christian theology and you're following the Bible, you can't compromise on homosexuality because Romans chapter 1 is very clear. So you're bound by the code, the biblical code. So even if you want to deviate, you cannot, right? Because the moment you deviate, you fail to be the ethicist representing the church, right? So even if a Christian theological ethicist has been faithful for 40 years of his life, let's say Franklin Graham, I'm sure he won't do this, but let's say he changes it and says, I accept homosexuality, that he no longer represents Christianity. Because we have the printed text. The text is printed. Martin Luther translated the Bible from Latin to the vernacular, speaking language of everyone, like at that time German in his area, so that everyone can read it so they know what the Bible says. So the whole point was that is, if the Christian ethicist goes away from the Bible, he no longer is seen as representing the Bible or the Catholic Church. Do you see what I'm saying? So in the nursing process, you could think of this as the cyclical evaluation process. You have the planning, you have the assessment, you have the planning, you have the implementation and evaluation, right? And then there's planning. So this whole cycle is guided by the Bible, the written text. So a Christian theological ethicist cannot deviate from the biblical text. And so that's where the Christian theologian differs from like secular theologian or nurse ethicist, medical ethicist, law ethicist, ethicists than any other profession where they're not necessarily tied to the Bible. But Christian ethics, theological ethics, has to be tied to the Bible because it's Christian theological ethics. You see what I'm saying? So often Catholic theologians clash with nurse ethicists, and medical ethicists. Yeah, because for instance, a Catholic Church ethicist cannot let you have abortion for any reason. Because they're bound by the biblical text. They can't allow you to have abortion. In their hospital, right? In their hospital, they cannot perform abortions because they believe that it's baby killing. So it doesn't matter how rationally you explain it. you're hitting a wall. Because killing a baby is killing, and it's against the Ten Commandments. Therefore, it's against the biblical ethics. So it doesn't matter how good of evidence you bring, how many experts you bring, it's irrelevant. There are certain ethical codes that are inviolable. And that's like abortion. You cannot have abortion. You cannot do an abortion according to Christian ethics. So like Baptist hospital, the Southern Baptist will not perform abortion. Seventh-day Adventist hospital, like it's Shady Grove, they will not perform abortion because they can't. They're ethically bound not to perform abortions. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, that's something they cannot change. Same with homosexuality. They can never accept homosexuality, even if they want to. Because the moment they accept homosexuality, they're going against the biblical text. And like the nursing process, you have assessment, diagnosis, planning, intervention, and then evaluation, and then back to planning or assessment. This whole cycle has at the center the biblical text when you're doing Christian theological ethics. And that's why you will never see the Catholic theologian approving homosexuality or approving abortion, because they cannot, because the text is explicit about these issues. Right? They're not implicit, they're not giving you innuendos. They're explicitly stated in Romans chapter 2. So sometimes, nurse ethicists, they don't understand that, because obviously they're operating from the vantage point that Bible is not authoritative. It's not the word of God, right? Same with medical ethicists. So so that's the conflict even within the ethics traditions, right? Because you have the secular ethicists who are willing to kill the baby through abortion, but they have like their set of arguments, right, that are rationally constructed, and they debate along those lines. But for Christian ethicists, they can't even debate it, because it's one of those non-negotiable ethical principles. Like homosexuality is wrong, you can't negotiate it. Abortion is wrong, you can't negotiate it. These are not negotiable or debatable ethical points for Catholic theologians. So whether you are Georgetown University or Boston College or Loyola University or Loyola Marymount University or Marymount University in Arlington, you have to understand that the Catholic ethics position is homosexuality is wrong, abortion is wrong. I mean, they cannot compromise on that. It doesn't matter. You can try to put a bullet in their head. You could pay them off. That you can never change it, because the biblical text is explicit. So the moment that a Christian theologian says homosexuality is okay, he no longer becomes authoritative or representative of the biblical tradition. And the laity, like majority of Americans are laity, right? Meaning they're not clergy, they're not pastors or priests. They follow the Bible. So if the priest is like saying homosexuality is okay, they're just going to leave the church and go to a church where they say homosexuality is wrong. And that's why you had a lot of people leaving like mainline churches, like United Methodist Church or Evangelical Lutheran Church of America or Presbyterian Church in USA, and they went to Baptist Church, or they went to Seventh-day Adventist Church, or they went to a charismatic church, or they went to Assemblies of God, where they say homosexuality is absolutely wrong. People just go. They just leave the church that teaches that it's okay, because they're like, well, I could read the Bible. I could read Romans chapter 1 on my own. So in historical terms, as you know, I'm a historian, you lose your legitimacy once you start opposing the biblical text. Within the 300 million Christians in America, the moment you say homosexuality is okay, you've lost them. You lost majority of them. And so you can lose legitimacy like that. You can easily lose your legitimacy. You can lose your legitimacy overnight. Yeah. That's why the Roman Catholic Church has been around for 2,000 years, because they are smart enough to know that they cannot go against fundamental principles. They cannot go against it. They can't change it, because the moment they change it, the whole church will be destroyed. So all the cardinals, all the bishops know this. So regardless of what they personally feel, if they don't want the Catholic Church to be destroyed, then they have to say homosexuality is evil. They can't compromise on that point. Because then you lose the 1 billion Catholic faithful around the world. They'll leave to go to the Protestant churches. They'll teach that homosexuality is wrong. And that happens in certain parts of Latin America. Assemblies of God have been able to make inroads into Catholic areas because, the ones that were evangelizing were emphatic, homosexuality is wrong, and they're like really aggressive about it. So people start joining these churches because they were so aggressive about it. So, yeah. So that's just, 2,000 years of Christian history. It's not going to change. Christian legitimacy hinges on the Bible, the biblical text. Even the Pope himself can lose legitimacy if he's seen by the faithful, 1 billion faithful, as not following the Bible. So it's about survival for the Catholic Church and for the bishops, cardinals, and the priests, and all the orders, Franciscans, Dominicans, Jesuits, the Cell Brothers. It's about survival as an organization, because the moment they turn their back on the Bible, they're no longer legitimate, and they will die away. And who wants to die, right? So that's why the Christian attack on homosexuality and abortion will never change, because when the clergy do that, they will lose legitimacy, they'll lose power, they'll lose followers, they'll lose donations, they'll lose everything. And Catholic Church has been around for 2,000 years, so they know from experience that that's what's going to happen. And that's why they've been consistently making the political choice that's been fairly clever to make sure the faithful don't leave, like other churches, like Assemblies of God. People don't go to church if they're secular. People go to church want to follow the Bible, right? So, that's why you're going to lose legitimacy, because people who don't follow the Bible generally don't go to church, right? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So, that's why Christian ethics is Christian ethics, and it will clash with nurse ethics. It will clash with medical ethics. But at the end of the day, there are only 4 million nurses in America. There's 1 billion Catholics in the world. And who's going to win? You know what I'm saying? So it's not a fight you can win. So even in America, you have 300 million Christians, who follow the Bible. Intentionally or unintentionally, they're kind of following the Bible. They recognize that it is authoritative. You may have liberal progressive, less than 1% who may not agree, but over 90% of Americans follow the Bible. Or even if they don't follow the Bible, they want to, or they think it is right to, which gives legitimacy to the biblical text on the theoretical realm, right? And that's what you need. Legitimacy is about theory playing itself in the practical realm. So fundamentalist Christianity is here to stay, whether it's Protestant, Catholic, or Orthodox. You can't destroy it. It's been like that for 2,000 years. It's never going to change. So there are 140,957 deaths so far, and that's why I say if President Trump supports homosexuality, I'm gonna attack him every day until election day, so he definitely loses by a landslide, because he's betrayed the Christian church. He deserves to be, attack me, verbally attack, Don't vote for Trump. Don't vote for Trump. You'll see me doing that chair. Don't vote for Trump. Don't vote for Trump. If he supports homosexuality, I'll be doing that chair every day until election day. Until you have nightmares. No, not nightmares, nice dreams about the cheer. Yeah. Yeah, that's a promise, President Trump. Yeah, just hi, President Trump. I know you're watching the show. Um, yeah, so the confirmed cases is 3,825,153 cases. And so, it's rising by around 60,000 per day. As I said, deaths are coming. A lot of patients are being intubated, and so their death is being delayed now by like month or 2 months, especially because there's like enough hospital beds. Like in New York, they ran out of hospital beds, so people start dying quicker. Right? It's not that New York was less serious or more serious than now. It's just we have more room. At least, we prepared from the first wave. We prepared, right? So we're prepared to give more people like intubation, and we have more stuff to give. So once they ran out, obviously the death is going to rise at the rate of New York. I mean, logically speaking, and it's like human body's a human body. But as long as you have a ventilator to keep people alive, remember in New York they were using one ventilator for 2 people. Do you remember that? Yeah. So as long as you have one ventilator for one person, death is going to be slower. It's logical. That's why the death is slower now, but it's eventually going to get there, because as I said, they're going to be trying to persuade your children to pull the plug on you after like 4 or 5 weeks or 2 months, in which case you die as a COVID patient, right? Um, when they pull the plug on you. So, yeah. So I mean, the numbers are going to rise eventually, and I'm predicting like about 10,000 will die per day sometime in summer, because it's a long ways off until the end of summer. Yeah, they'll be starting to pull the plug on a lot of people in 2 3 weeks. Yeah, or maybe 4 weeks. Yeah, watch. Yeah, I'm sure. Like if you're watching this show, I'm sure you got a phone call from the hospital in Texas, Florida, California. Oh, we need you to sign approve the DNR, do not resuscitate order. I'm sure you've been approached about that. I mean, because that's yeah, everybody's approached about that. So I'm sure you're approached about that too. But as you know, Heerak came independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District because I am influenced by Georgetown's Catholic theological ethics, which is part of the Jesuit theological ethics, which is part of the Catholic theological ethics. I say do not resuscitate. Say full code. I want everything done to save my life. Yeah, that's my recommendation. I mean, do what you want, obviously, but that's my recommendation. Um, and I have that full code. I didn't even designate a durable power of attorney because I don't want anybody to change my wish. Because I could come out of coma and then find out like, my son tried to like pull the plug on me. And thank God I did not sign that durable power of attorney over to him. The plug would have been pulled and I would have been dead. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And he'll be like living with every saving, every property, every asset I have. Yeah, because he pulled the plug. Yeah. See what you learn watching this show? I want to save your life, because you're going to get COVID. A lot of you are going to get COVID. You want your son to pull the plug on you or give the authority to do that? He's not going to be pulling the plug. He's like nurses and doctors will be pulling the plug, but he has to authorize it, Yeah, so I'm just saying don't authorize it, don't make your son like throw up a power of attorney. Unless you're like 100% sure he's not going to pull the plug on you, But I mean, he doesn't get your inheritance when you die. So there is a conflict of interest or COI in his decision making. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. 2 million people can get, a lot of people do a lot of things. Yeah. Anyway, the 5 top choices or 5 COVID cases in the Middle East. You see before you, like not many people are dying in the Middle East, as I said, because COVID-19 from a spiritual angle, from a theological angle, is is fulfillment of Romans chapter 1. And Muslims are very anti-homosexuality, kind of like the Catholic Church, or the evangelical Christianity that is faithful to the Bible. So I'm so faithful to the Bible. I'm promising to say, don't vote for Trump. Don't vote for Trump every night if he supports gay marriage or LGBTQ plus. I mean, I'm loyal to Jesus. I don't want you to vote for a guy who's gonna further further denigrate the Bible, Romans chapter 1, right? If President Trump comes out attacking or not agreeing with Romans chapter 1, I'm going to make sure I stand with the Bible, and I encourage you to stand with Bible as well. Vote against them. Write in their name. Don't vote for Biden. He's also pro-gay, pro-LGBTQ, or I don't know. I mean, I believe President Trump isn't pro-LGBTQ, but if he comes out as, make sure you vote against him, but don't vote for Biden. Write in a name. If Amash is anti-LGBTQ, vote for Amash. I don't know what Amash's position is, but I think he's running for president, a former Republican. I don't much like the guy because he kind of betrayed President Trump. But if President Trump betrays the Christian church by supporting gay marriage, then that justifies us supporting Amash. Yeah, or anyone else who as long as they stand with the Christian church, what I'm saying? That's the fundamental point. They have to stand with the ethical dictates of the Christian church as propagated in the Bible. Yeah. So hopefully President Trump will not betray us. But what Jesus said, you're either for us or against us. It's black and white. There's only one way. One way, Jesus. There's only one way. One way, Jesus. Yeah, if you're not with Jesus, you're not with Jesus. What can I say? Yeah, Jesus is God. He gave us Romans chapter 1. He sent the judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah. So, one way, Jesus. One way, Jesus. One way, Jesus. Yeah, you're either for Jesus or you're not for Jesus. There's no gray zone. There's no gray zone. Yeah. Can I get a 5 on that? There's no gray zone. Can I get a 5? No gray zone. No gray zone. No gray zone. No gray zone. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Christian theology, Christian ethics is black and white. You can leave Christian religion. You have the freedom to leave Christian religion. But Christian theology, Christian ethics is black and white. No abortion, no homosexuality. You can't change the religion. It's like set in stone, literally, with the Bible. It's like printed. It's there for 2,000 years. It's going to be there for 2,000 more years. Yeah. So number 1 is Iran, and their death is 14,405, 5% death. Number 2 is Saudi Arabia in terms of cases, 253,349 cases. It's close to Iran. But look at the difference in death rate. They only have 2,523 death. It's like 1%. Qatar, 107,037, and their death is at 159, 0.1%. Iraq is 94,693 cases. Their death is at 3,869, so 4%. Like America, right? We're 4%. Oman is 68,400, and the death is total number is 326. The rate is 0.5%. Yeah. One of the benefits, as you know, I had been trained at Georgetown University's clinical nurse leader master's program, so one of the things that we study, because we're clinical nurse leaders, we are trained to be leaders in the microsystem, and so we need to examine how things went wrong. So one of the diagrams that we are taught to use is fishbone diagram. You see that fishbone? So the final head of the fish is the problem, like something that happened wrong. So how did it happen wrong? So we studied the causes and we put the causes on the fishbone. And that's why we call it fish bone diagram. All those bones, fish body bones, are causes that led to the problem, which is the fish head. So it's called fish diagram. Uh, so, so clinical nurse leaders can help with solving issues in COVID. We're trained to. I mean, we're trained to be leaders in the microsystem, which is like a hospital unit. So obviously, we're trained for COVID. That's what we're trained for. So anybody who has me is lucky. I had a job interview today, and it went really well. Uh, this is the interview that I got from the corporate. Um, and we talked, and she's like, yeah, so I guess the next stage is, I didn't know the interviews are like, well, it's so complicated. She's like, yeah, the next stage is like you talk to the final hiring manager in HR. She's like, it's 45 minutes. And then, after that, she'll outline a contract for you and give you the terms of the contract. And then you can sign it or whatever, do what you want with that. So I'm like, whoa, you know. So I guess that's the next stage, So like head of hiring or something, Yeah. So today went really well, because I guess I'm being sent to the head of hiring, HR. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited. Um, and I have two more interviews this week with two different hospitals. Um, and yes, I'm excited. Yeah. So three different hospitals want me. They're all interviewing me this week. So I guess until I sign that paper, I'm kind of dating around, right? And then I sign my paper. Now we're exclusive. I'm going to your hospital to work in August, right? So the person asked me like, when do you want to start working? And I said, as soon as my program finishes, I want to start. And it seemed like I could start before the NCLEX exam, like because I'm taking my NCLEX exam, within hopefully within a week or two after I'm done. So I'm planning to take it like within the week, and obviously I'll pass. But I had like 99% on the predictor test with Professor Schloss. Um, so yeah, I shouldn't have any problem passing. But yeah, but you know, I guess they'll be like they'll hire me conditionally, and I'll work conditionally, and then and then when I get the certificate, it will be like I mean, because you have to pass the NCLEX RN to have the RN license. So I guess that's how some hospitals do it. So yes, I talked to her, about working, started work before my NCLEX RN, and she seemed open to that. So yeah, hopefully, I guess I'll talk to the head of hiring, HR, and then you know put all of that down on paper. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited. The interview went really well. Yay for Heerak! Yay for Heerak! Yay! Yay for Heerak! Yeah. So Harry's such a good friend. He always looks at me with those supportive eyes, and he's like, "Hira, you the man. You the man, Hira. You the man." You see that eye? Do you see that? Yeah, that's that look. Um, yeah, so fishbone diagram. How do we get here? And then we try to analyze it. Um, Obviously, you could do that with anything, right? COVID-19 death. How do we get to like 140 death? I gave you like one of the fish bones, right? And one of the fish bone causes that I've argued was because hospitals in America are programmed to get the patients to sign to not resuscitation order or DNR or to not intubate or pull the plug for people who are, ventilated. They're kind of their life is artificially stopped. I mean, I don't want to be so brutal about it, but if you're pulling the tube out of a person, right? That's if you keep the tube in, that person is going to keep living. But the moment you pull the tube out, he's going to die, and then he'll become a COVID death patient. So one of the reasons why we have so many COVID-19 deaths in America, unlike other countries, is that we have this like standardized policy to try to get the patient to pull the plug if they don't react to, if they're in a coma for a certain period. And that doesn't really happen in other countries, like in Korea, because it's a Buddhist country. And Christians don't do that either. I guess generally, like they want to keep you alive as long as you want. Um, so they end up surviving because there are people who have been in ventilated for like or intubated in some way for like months. They were intubated or had some kind of tube in them from March, and they just came out of a coma and they're alive. Yeah, I've read newspaper stories about that. Yeah, I'm sure you have too. So if you pull that tube out in April, they would die. You know what I'm saying? Or May or June. So in countries like Korea, they don't pull the tube out. You know, so obviously you're gonna have lower death rates because they're not gonna pull the tube out. So you could write it out for like 6 months. And you may live, you may die, but you know. So obviously, if you pull the tube out, you're gonna die. So I think that's one of the reasons why we have a very high death rate. From a statistical angle, and obviously we have to do the fishbone diagram. And I would encourage healthcare experts out there to do this study to see whether my theory is correct. That's one of my theories. Yeah, so you see how you do the fishbone? So the head is like, why are so many Americans dying? And you try to figure out the reasons, with the method, right? The method is nurses and doctors telling the son to pull out the tube. So if you follow that method, you die. Right? Manpower is doctors and nurses telling you to pull out the tube. Mother nature, obviously you're gonna die if the tube's pulled out because the tube is in there to help you breathe. Measurement is like, yeah, I mean, you pull the tube out, your heart stops. That's a measurement, right? Material, that's the tube that's put into you. The machine is the ventilator, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you can study, things from different angles. And I have a wedding photo of Princess Beatrice. She just got married like last week. So I thought you'd want to see a picture of Princess Beatrice. Isn't she pretty? Just like a princess. They look like they look like a very lovely couple there. And I have a picture of Prince William and Katie, and they're a nice couple. They're madly in love. Prince Harry and what's her name? American woman. Um, can't remember her name. But Prince Harry and his wife wedding photo, and obviously the two boys whose mother is Princess Diana. I'm sure they think about her every day. Boys tend to be more like they think about their mothers more. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a girl, so I can't tell, but I think boys are like more attached to their mothers. That's why you have this term "mama's boys." You never hear the term "mama's girls," right? Um, but I feel sad for a lot of people who can't get married, like Emily. Emily Norris in my program. Like she's engaged to be married like in December. I don't know what's going to happen to her wedding. Hope all of us are invited. you know, I mean, I guess she can't physically have a wedding. I feel so bad for Emily. Oh, Emily, I just want to give you a hug. Oh, I mean, can you imagine that you're engaged and you're celebrating your engagement and you're preparing for your wedding, and you prepare for your wedding like a year in advance, right? Pick out all a caterer, the church, and guest list, and uh, plates, and oh my gosh, and then you like COVID-19 hits, California is shutting down, you can't have a wedding. What do you do? Beatrice, Princess Beatrice, she had a small private wedding because she wanted to get married. Obviously, she wanted a big wedding. Who doesn't, right? but there's COVID-19, so she had a small family wedding in Windsor Castle with her and her husband, and the Queen was there. That's basically it. Like, just a handful of people. I don't know. Maybe that's what Emily has to do. Emily, Emily's father, mother, her fiance's father, mother, their siblings. That's probably it. I mean, isn't there a law like you can't have more than 10 people in a building? I don't know. I, I don't know if that's California. Some state has that law. Um, yeah, I think now in California you can't even have 10 people inside a building. So, and it's going to get worse in December. So it's a flu season, so you're gonna have more people dying. I feel so bad for Emily. She's such a nice. I bet she would look beautiful in a wedding dress. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some people in our cohort saw, the women. You know, Billy from Texas and Graham from South Carolina, North Carolina, and Heerak from South Korea immigrant. We're like boys, so you know, how women they generally shop with women for like wedding gowns and stuff. So maybe Emily went shopping for wedding gown with like some of the women in the program. I wonder, you know. I mean, it's like 6 months away. So she probably already has a wedding gown picked out, right? I mean, I don't know how these things go. Because I think women generally plan the wedding, don't they? Yeah, I feel really bad for Emily. Hopefully, yeah, I don't know what to say because COVID-19 isn't going away. I don't think there's one person who's saying COVID-19 is going to go away by December. So I wonder if Emily's going to postpone the wedding. I wonder what people are doing because I'm sure that a lot of people were planning to get married in June. Did they get married? Did they postpone the wedding? Did they go to City Hall? Did they get married like Romeo and Juliet just with the priest? I wonder. I haven't really read any articles on this. Maybe CNN can do a series on like marrying during COVID and just kind of give 4 or 5 different marriages. How they, the couples, what they decided. That'll be kind of a interesting, you know, uh, social piece. Because I'm sure a lot of people are curious. I'm curious. Someone has to kind of investigate it and give us a report on this, right? Maybe Fox News will do it. But yeah. Um, anyhow, anywho, oh, isn't Rob, isn't Ducky really cute? Oh, I love Ducky. It's so cute. Oh. Yeah. So anyway, anywho, yeah, I don't believe in the liberal media, and neither should you. And that's why you should tune into this show every day. It's a daily show. I give you truth. I give you assessment. I don't lie to you about the Bible or Christian theology. I give you the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help you God. Yeah. So that's why you're gonna get the truth and nothing but the truth. So help you God. So yeah, check in every day. Check in tomorrow for another exciting episode of COVID-19 update with Heerak. Give me a 5. Give me a 5. Yeah, so hopefully the show will help your family and your children survive COVID-19 and everything around it and help you to understand what's going on around you. Uh, and so obviously knowledge is power. So I want to give you that power. I want to give you that knowledge. And here at Christian Kim, that's who I am, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District. I am the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. So I'll give you insights that no one else can give. You see President Trump following me now. He's having masks, and he's being smart. And because, Dr. Fauci started following me because he said, at first, don't wear a mask. And here at Christian Kim said, wear a mask. My show every day, I said, wear a mask. Go back to like my early episodes from April, first week. Yeah, wear a mask. So I see Dr. Fauci has come to my position like a couple months ago. Dr. Han and World Health Organization has come to my position. Dr. Gupta in CNN has come to my position. Now President Trump. Yay! So yeah, listen to me. You will live. You know, this show is important. I'm like a trailblazer. Uh, blazing the trail for everyone. Everybody is like kind of following the direction that I'm leading them in, which they should, because Heerak Kim is independent candidate for U.S. Congress, but more importantly, Heerak Kim is the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. And so I'm glad more and more people are realizing that Heerak Kim's way is the way to survive COVID. I'm glad that people are realizing that. Um, yeah, tell other people to watch this show because you want them to survive COVID-19 and everything else that happens during COVID-19, right? Yeah. And yeah, so don't forget to vote for me on November 3rd, 2020. Send me to US Congress. Help me so I can help you. Help me so I can help you, right? Yeah. So, yeah, so I'll talk to you tomorrow. So enjoy next 24 hours. Stay alive. Don't get COVID. Wear a mask when you're outside. Um, and yeah, so see you tomorrow. So I'll bid you adieu for now. See you later, alligator.